The first 10 seconds of your presentation, part 2. Build a relationship. Create curiosity. Another way to establish a relationship with your listeners in the first few seconds, create curiosity. Use the short word who.
I have a confession to make. But first, I want you to make a little confession to me. In the past year, I want you to just raise your hand if you've experienced relatively little stress. Anyone? How about a moderate amount of stress? Who's experienced a lot of stress? Yeah, me too. But that is not my confession. My confession is this.
Draw out your listeners. This promotes relationship. It creates curiosity. It establishes relationship. Who of you still knows, which of you knows which city is bigger, Denver or Salt Lake City? Which one of you has ever read Dostoevsky's book of Guilt and Atonement? Which one of you saw? One of you has ever made the decision to resign? Which of you, ladies and gentlemen, has ever heard of light the fuse? Create curiosity by lighting the fuse. For example, let's assume you give a lecture on Greenland. Do not say, I would like to welcome you to my presentation on Greenland. Create curiosity. Start by saying, for example, 2 years ago I visited Greenland for the first time in my life. I had no idea how this event would change me one day, etc. On a sunny spring day in 2007, I met Dr. Müller on a park bench. I had no idea how much this strange scientist, this short encounter, would change me one day, etc. You also create curiosity when you use sentences like, at that moment I had no idea that I was about to make the biggest or the most important decision of my life. There is something foul. That seemed very strange to me. I had a queasy feeling. Suddenly I realized. And now it gets interesting, exciting. He asked me the stupidest question I ever heard.
I need to make a confession at the outset here. A little over 20 years ago, I did something that I regret. Something that I'm not particularly proud of. Something that in many ways I wish no one would ever know. But that here I feel kind of obliged to reveal. In the late 1980s, in a moment of youthful indiscretion.
I'm telling you something I've never told anyone before. You also create curiosity when you use words like strange, guess, suddenly, or just talk about your feelings. You also can provoke expectations. You will massively increase sales if, etc. Finally, the most important thing, etc. What every person, customer, employee, woman really wants, etc. Always keep in mind, it's not about presentation. It's all about conversation. The listeners want to remain in dialogue with the speaker. It's not about perfectionism. It's all about connecting. Another suggestion, how to create goodwill in your listeners in the first few seconds. Appreciate. Many good speakers use appreciation. In the first few seconds, show appreciation. Appreciation is not lying or pretending, but simply expressing the positive qualities of your listeners out loud. For example, what I always admire about athletes, parents, theologians, scientists, Swabians, etc., is your ability, or you are the specialists, the professionals, the experts. Don't say us, it sounds elitist. For example, in front of students at the university, I usually say at the beginning of my lecture, "I've been warned about you." I was told that the students at the university are very well informed on the subject of rhetoric. They're right in the middle of practicing it, etc. Or, you as students set the direction. You shape the future generations. You set the direction. You shape the company. I have great respect for you all. You are in a responsible position. Working with you is a real pleasure.
And especially the people of Berlin and Germany, thank you for this extraordinarily warm welcome. In fact, it's so warm and I feel so good that I'm actually going to take off my jacket, and anybody else who wants to, feel free to. We can be a little more informal among friends. And I bring with me the enduring friendship of the American people, as well as my wife, Michelle, and Malia and Sasha.
Barack Obama, April the 25th, 2016, in Germany. Charismatic and charming. Mischievous and pathetic. He pulls out all the stops. The speech it structures as if from a textbook. At the beginning, captatio benevolentiae. The grasping for the benevolence of the auditorium. Appreciation. I must confess the German people have a very special place in my heart. Appreciation, praise, or during the question and answer session after your lecture in an interview, that's a great question. You understood that very well. You said that aptly. You did a great job, etc., etc. Another suggestion on how to stay in dialogue with your listeners. Read minds. Read minds. For example, you, my dear viewer on YouTube, now think that's mind reading. You may think that's completely impossible, mind reading. Fun fair game, snake oil salesman. They think he's gone crazy now. How in the world is that supposed to work? You find it difficult to believe. You know this from your personal experience. You already know what's coming, that's mind reading. You all know that's impossible.
So if I told you that this was the face of pure joy, would you call me crazy? I wouldn't blame you, because every time I look at this Arctic selfie, I shiver.
Which of you, ladies and gentlemen, can imagine that this expression at sub-zero temperatures is the expression of pure joy? Reading minds is also called rhetorical colonization, which means you capture a country which does not belong to you at all. For example, you're all still wide awake. You all think that, or it's late, most of us are tired, etc. But please remember, colonization is manipulation. That rhymes very well, by the way. The Greeks were already aware of this. Small parenthesis from Greek antique rhetoric. Sentences which rhyme are believed, since they insinuate that the speaker has clear thoughts in their minds. All's well that ends well. Tit for tat. For example, an apple a day keeps the doctor away is always believed by the listeners. It's not the apples, it's the rhyme. Advertisers know that, politicians know that, demagogues know that, leaders know that. Back to the topic. Another way to create a relationship with the listeners, especially towards the end of your presentation, ask, inquire. Inquire, ask. For example, ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine what I'm saying? Or what exactly would you do if you had sat next to me? Or have you ever felt like this before? Or have you ever experienced this feeling? Or now, for the most important thing, are you all with me? It's like a chess game. There are many other good openings. You have now discovered 5 possible openings: immersion, interaction, create curiosity, appreciation, read minds, ask, inquire. There are many other creative variations that we explain in our seminars and practice we do. We do also video training with you regarding to the subject of creating relationships. To establish a relationship with the listeners, in the first few seconds of your presentation, consider: don't try to be interesting as a speaker. Don't try to be interesting as a speaker. Be more interested in a relationship with your listeners. Don't be interesting, be more interested. Don't play the interesting speaker, be interested in your listeners. It's not about presentation, it's all about conversation. It's like in real life, it's not what you achieve in your life, it's more what you contribute in your life. It's not about my perfectionism, it's all about connecting to you, to the audience.